Good morning, dear Stitchers. It's Judy with JBW Designs, and I'm so happy to welcome you back to my channel. This is, August 11th, Friday, and I think this is my Flosstube number 62. And did you know it's National Cross Stitch Day? What a perfect day for me to record a video and for us to celebrate what we love to do. So, first of all, I have to thank you for helping me to get to 5,000 subscribers. I find that absolutely remarkable because I remember when I first started out, and I've kind of forgotten what year and date I started. I remember I used to track it in the beginning, the number of subscribers, and I think, oh, 67 people are watching. That's remarkable. And then, it might go to 200. And you get to a point where you just can't believe it. And that's where I am right now. So I have to thank you for subscribing, for watching, as always, for your wonderful comments and your emails. I feel like I have all these wonderful new pen pals, and I don't think I ever expected that when I started doing this. So thank you, thank you, thank you. Let's see, I have a lot to talk to you about today. As I said in my title, I am surrounded, as usual, by models, and some are ones that I haven't had for a while because they've been out at trunk shows. Some are brand new that are going to be released in 2 weeks. So you are going to be the first to see what's coming up. And I will tell you all about that when I get to that portion of the program. So let's see where to begin. First of all, I always like to start with Happy Mail. And I did get several wonderful packages this week. The first one I want to tell you about is from Mary. And everything she sent was wrapped in beautiful tissue paper with ribbon. I'm just always, again, flabbergasted by the time and the care that people take to write and send gifts, and I wasn't expecting it. So look at her darling card. Isn't that sweet? And the title of it is So It Begins, which is so appropriate for all of us. And then she sent a wonderful note paper that's called Taking It One Stitch at a Time. And I love pads like this. I am a list maker, and every week I have a list for the week. Sometimes it goes out farther than that. Every day I have a list for the day. So a note paper like that is so sweet. And then she sent this darling little case. Look at this. With all the things that we love. And inside were some little thread drops, which I'm planning to use today. I've been saving them to show to you, and then I thought, oh good, as soon as I show them on my Flosstube, then I'll put them right in action. And then there's a sweet little pen in here. Look at that, isn't that darling? So Mary, thank you for such a thoughtful gift. And then I got another gift from one of my Flosstube friends, and probably yours too, and that's Annie with the Proper Stitcher. And as many of you know, because she's been just hitting it out of the ballpark with her new designs. She has started designing and publishing booklets and selling them, and I can't tell you how many Flosstubers I have seen mention her products. They're beautifully done. For her first set of releases, as you probably know, she did 4 booklets. They are either reproductions of antique samplers or portions of antique samplers, and I think this is so clever, Annie. She called them reimagined. So in other words, she took a portion, and this is called When Flowers Bloom, of a sampler, and I think that's such a good idea because sometimes a whole antique sampler doesn't warrant reproducing it completely. So I am going to show you all 4 of her designs, and then I will be sending them out as prizes in a future video. She also did Carolyn Carter, which is just darling with little trees, etc. And that is a reproduction. She also did Clarissa's Garden Sampler, And I believe, yes, that's a reimagined one with beautiful, beautiful colors. This one was so interesting to me because I have two antique samplers that are so similar to this in colors and layout, etc. So it'd be interesting to lay all three of them together and study them. And then the last one that she reproduced is a darling blue sampler, and it's called Zeresh Andress, and this is 1789. So Annie, good for you, and if you're not watching Annie at the Proper Stitcher, I'll encourage you to do so. So now I have a lot of follow-ups, which I often do to my last videos. And I like to answer questions that have come up. There's one question that's come up, and this is so funny. For the last month, I have been showing this GGR design that I've been working on. And in my notes, it says, you know, tell the fabric, tell the fiber, etc. And every time I manage to run right over that information and forget to tell you what it is. So I got it out again today. I've actually, I'll tell you a little bit about the sampler. I've stopped working on this for the moment because right now there are a couple things going on. There is a wholesale market at the end of this month, which begins 2 weeks from today, and it's called Needlework Marketplace. And it is an online show rather than like Nashville, which is in person. I'm going to take a quick drink of iced tea so I don't lose my voice altogether. And then, what was I starting to tell you? So there's an online show in 2 weeks, and then, believe it or not, I'm also starting to design for Nashville of next year. So I really need to put down my some of my stitching for myself and get back to work at stitching my models. So this is the piece that I showed, and I, as you can see, I'm doing pretty well on it. I actually worked myself all the way down to the base. So you want to know what it's stitched on. It's stitched on a 40 count linen called Newcastle, which is a linen that is produced by Zweigert, and I'm using, believe it or not, 150 DMC, which is just a wonderful red. I've never tired of working in this red. I just love how it looks. So finally, I'm answering your questions about what am I doing this sampler on. And then the other thing, of course, I wanted to show you is this is a series of samplers that GGR has put out using an initial. And so if you're watching me for the first time, this might be new to you, but she has a series of samplers that feature an initial. In this case, I did the J. I couldn't find, the W doesn't exist actually. And it's just full of wonderful old sampler motifs. And as I've told you before, I am going to change some things up in here. Actually, as I'm working on it, I think of things that I want to do. There's a section right here. I think I talked about this with the little duck, and I thought, I just didn't think he or she quite fit in the sampler. And it's surrounded by an ABC, and I thought, oh, I think instead of ABC, I think I'll do my initials, JBW, right there. And then I don't make too many changes, just a few now and then, but it's a great piece to work on. And hopefully next year I'll have time to finally finish it. So now what else do I want to show you? I've got a little pile here of stuff, as I always do. So one of the things in my last video, I showed you two models for a booklet called Be Joyful. And at the time, I hadn't pulled the booklet for some reason. And so this is what it looks like. There are two designs in this booklet, Joy and Noel. And it's just a fun one to stitch. And as I mentioned before, the finishing on this was exquisite. So that was featured in my last video. Then another question that I got had to do with the sled designs that I showed. And I showed you two sizes of sleds. I worked the larger sled over 2 threads and the smaller thread over 1. I don't know if I can, so there are 2 books that use the sleds. I'm pretty sure this is the over 1 sled because it looks tinier there. anyhow, and someone wrote, and they were looking for the sleds and they couldn't figure out what size to purchase. So I went down and measured them, and the small sled, not counting the handle, is 4 inches long, and the larger sled is 6 inches. So I hope that helps you if you're on the hunt for sleds. And then the last item from the last video that I mentioned is that sometimes I cannot remember the names of my books. I think it's because I have so many. I think I'm on book number, 430 something. And so sometimes all the titles start to sound alike. And so last week when I was showing you some Christmas tree designs, I said, oh, I have a series of books. I couldn't remember the name. So that was kind of frightening, isn't it? But anyhow, I pulled them all out. I thought I would show them to you. There are 11 books in this collection, and they're called the Christmas Tree Collection 1 through 11. Each booklet features 2 designs. I'm just going to kind of go through it quickly here. I had them in order. They may not be anymore. Many of these designs have actually been featured in my ornament collection booklets. They don't appear all in one booklet, but maybe that would be an idea for the future. So here's collection 3. Here is 4. And I worked them over 2, you can see from the pictures, and then over 1. So my over 2 were done on a, let's see, I did the over 2 actually on a 28, and I also did the over 1 on a 28 over 1 thread, of course. Here's number, I skipped some, but here's number 6. Here's number 7. Here is number 8. Here is number 9, a little different finishing. Here is number 10, and here is number 11. So they were fun to design, they're fun to stitch, and who knows, maybe you'll have an idea of whether you'd like to see those all in one collection. I have another idea actually for another collection book down the line. So I have a really fun thing to tell you about, and that is, and some of you may have seen this already, there is a group on Instagram, and I will put this information in my notes below. I'm going to hold this so you can see it. That's called the Common Threaded Stitcher. And the purpose of this group, and it's gone on for a couple years, I think they run their, I'm calling it an event, a couple times a year. It used to run for a month. This time they've shortened it to just yesterday, today, tomorrow, and Saturday, I think. It's 4 days. And it's just fun. And what it is, so if you're trying to find this, and you may after I show you this, because this is a free chart for you, if you go to Instagram and under the search engine, look for Common Threaded Stitcher, it will take you to their home page, and under that home page are going to be prompts. So every day they ask a new question, and the purpose of the Common Threaded Stitcher is, it's instead of going to a retreat, this is like a little mini retreat online, and they ask you questions every day, and it's just to kind of gather us all together in what we love to do. So the first question was, tell us about yourself, and you can go back and answer if you've missed that. The second question I think might have been, I'm trying to think what it was. I think it was, tell us your favorite designer, and of course a lot of people had trouble answering that because we all have many designers that I love to stitch, and you do too. And then the third question I think was, what are you going to cross stitch today? So that was today's. So what I want to tell you is that the gal that is the head of Common Threaded Stitcher, she has a team of people who help her with this event, and her name is Kia B, and she's from Kia B Quilting, and she has a very large following online. I'm sure you've watched her Flosstubes. She's just delightful. And she called or wrote to me a couple months ago and said, Judy, would you be interested in designing something for this event? And I said, oh, I can do that. That sounds like fun. Plus, it's a great way for me to introduce myself to people who haven't heard of JBW Designs. So I designed this tiny little stocking with all kinds of houses and trees and buildings, and we're calling it a stitching community because that's what we are. And you can access the chart for this free design by going on to Common Threaded Stitcher. There's a little link below that heading, and if you click on that link, it will take you to the page to allow you to download this chart. So that's my gift for you today, a free design from the Common Threaded Stitcher in JBW. So I'm giving gifts to everyone today. That's kind of fun. So now what else? And ask me questions if I haven't really explained that thoroughly enough. So what do I want to do next? So I have, as always, I have a plan. I do an outline kind of what I want to talk to you about. And the first thing I thought I would do is I am going to show you models that I released at the Nashville market, which was 6 months ago. And some of you are just finding my channel and may not have seen these before. As I say, I haven't had them in my possession because they've been out at trunk shows. Some of you maybe have seen them in the past, but it doesn't hurt to show you again what they look like. So I'm going to show you the models and the booklets and just quickly go over the fabric, etc., and tell you a little bit about the models. So the first one I think I will show, I'll grab this one, is Eliza's French Birds. And this is the booklet. Let me grab that. See if I can balance it here. That goes along with Eliza's French Birds. This was so popular. The fun thing is there were several people who did stitch-alongs for this, and of course you can always join. It's just hashtag Bluebirds of Happiness SAL. Kim the Contented Stitcher participated, Annie of the Proper Stitcher, Merritt Crawford of So Just Because. There were so many, and they posted their finishes. They posted how they chose to finish it. Actually, there was one that was posted recently on my Friends of JBW Designs Facebook page, and she finished it as a pillow. And that was, she found fabric that used all of these colors. It was just charming. So I'll talk to you about that site at the end, but you'll have to check it out. So this, when the show opened, was probably my most popular design. And who knew? Excuse me. We never know what truly is going to hit the fancy of stitchers, but people seem to love that. The interesting about this design is that it was taken from an antique sampler that I bought. Well, I can show you part of it here, that I bought a year ago. And I actually, again, didn't want to do the whole sampler, so I just chose a portion of it to do. I stitched this on a 36 count fabric from R&R called Espresso. And the fibers that are, this is fairly small actually. The stitch count is 76 by 93. And I used a mixture of Classic Color Works and Weeks Dye Works. And of course I always put in DMC equivalents. So that was one of the designs from the Nashville market. Another design, ooh, sorry about that. I have everything balanced here, from that market was something I called Joyful Purpose, a joyful purpose. And this quotation, joy and work for labor's all, make the work and effort small, was actually taken from an antique sampler that I found in one of my many collections of books. And I like that because it kind of expresses what we all love to do. Let's take a look at this. The borders that are in this piece, the basket and the birds, everything, are all adapted from antique samplers. although this piece is an original. I stitched it on a 36 count linen in the color Winter Moon by Zweigart. So that's what the booklet looks like. And I, let's see, it's 164 by 112. And I'm going to set this down so I can check the fibers out for you. Let's see here. I stitched it, actually, it's hard to tell, but there are actually 2 shades of raspberry in this design. And I stitched them in DMC. So I use 3350 and 3731. And I should mention to you while I'm showing you this that Lisa with L&M Framing did the framing for me, and I'll show you several that she did today, but her work is just beautiful. So if you're looking for a framer, I'd highly suggest Lisa, and I'll try to remember to list that below. All right, I always reach a point where, oh, where do I put everything, right? All right, we're going to pile that up right over there. So the next one that I want to show you is actually another part of a series. And as I mentioned before, you know I love to do series. I think a lot of designers do. It kind of, I don't know, it kind of inspires us. So this was, I have a Seaside series. So this was Seaside 8. And in that, I always include 2 or I think the first book actually had 3 designs, and they always have a seaside theme. So I stitched an egret this time, and let's look at this. So this was stitched on an antique 32 count Belfast, antique green actually, and then I always do the design both over 2 and over 1, and this was stitched on a 28 count. And this is just finished as a flat with a twisted cording edging. And this is finished with pom-pom trim. Let me check on that. That was from, I believe, Lady Dot Creates. And so there's the egret over 2 and over 1. And then here's the little seal. And I love this fabric. I don't know if you can see it, the little dots in it, but it's called Splash. And it's a very, very pale pink. It is from Zweigart, and it's a 32 count. So here's the seal stitched over 2. And as you know, in these designs, I'm incorporating all kinds of little seaside motifs to make up the design. And then the little seal stitched over 1 was stitched on an antique white 28 Cashel. And this one was finished with cording, and this seal was finished, little seal model was finished with rickrack, and I think that was from Dames of the Needle. So you know we have several sources for wonderful trims these days, and once again this is what that booklet looks like. And you can order any of these patterns that I'm showing to you from your local needlework shops or online shops, of course. So what do I want to grab next? All right, so the next design that came from that show is Eliza's Sewing Smalls. And this, again, was taken from that same sampler that Eliza's French Birds came from. And so in the corner of that sampler, there were all these small motifs that I thought just lent themselves to making, a scissor fob. I made a little pin cushion, and I did a little scissor case. So the scissor case is on the front. And I think my finisher just did a fabulous job because it's such a unique finish. It's just a square. But then she's mounted the top finish portion across here, and it's just a little pocket to put your scissors in. So that's one of the designs. You can see the fabric on the back. I happen to have that one in my stash, and it worked out perfectly. So that's one of the 3 designs. Here's the sweet little pin cushion that is also in that booklet. And I want you to take note that this is one of the beautiful, beautiful pins from Jersey Girl Stitch Company. And it's Teresa and Anna, and they produce the most gorgeous counting pins for you to use in your projects. So I'll encourage you to go and check that out. I just see, I wondered if a pin was missing, and I just looked down. All right, I'm going to show you both pins here. And one of the pins was stuck in another one of the models. So thank goodness I found it. And then the third model, incidentally, the first two were stitched over 2 threads. I'll talk to you about the fabric in a minute. And this is just the little scissor fob. And that's stitched over 1 and just mounted on a flat piece with twisted cording. So what did I use? I used the R&R again, Espresso 36 count. You could do it on any count you wanted to. And I believe, I can't show you actually the inside of the booklet because all of the charts show each of these designs next to them, so it's not possible for me to open it for you, but all 3 of these are pictured on the inside of the booklet, so you'll just have to trust me on that, right? So that was another design. This was a real interesting piece from that show. I have done a series of 3 booklets, and you can tell if you look at the walls in my office that I collect a lot of antique samplers. What's kind of funny is I started out just collecting red and white samplers, which is interesting to me. I can't quite figure that out because I have no red in my home at all. I tend to use, as you can see, pastels and blues, etc. But they just spoke to me somehow. I just love them. So I started with actually a very small collection, and then I kept adding to it. So I've actually done 3, I'm going to show you, booklets that are that size, an 8.5 by 11, and I did one called Antique Red Samplers, and they were reproductions of samplers that are in my collection, and there's 5 samplers in one booklet. And then I did Antique Red Samplers 2 and took another set of samplers from my collection, and I wish I could get all the models. I should sometime off the walls and take each book and show you the designs that are in each booklet because it's really a nice collection. So last year in Nashville I released a 3rd booklet. And this one I called American Marking Samplers. So they were not all red, but they all had a unique quality. And that is that marking samplers, as many of you know, were used by young girls not only to learn the alphabet, but to learn how to mark linens in their home. And so the antique samplers, some of them I restitched again. Some of them were just, I charted all of them as they were stitched, of course. So this booklet contains, let's see if I can show you, without showing you a chart. So it shows a picture of each sampler and then the history of the girl who stitched it. And that's what's so fascinating about all of these pieces. Let me see if I can find another one to show you. Well, here's the inside cover. That shows you a little more about what the marking samplers look like. And they range in age from 1796 up to the mid-1800s. And I pulled out one of the models right here. This is Lucinda Hayward. She stitched this when she was 9 years old. Now this is my reproduction of her antique, and I do own her antique and have it framed. But I find them just so fascinating. The letters they use, look at the O right here. It almost looks like a little ring. The ampersand in here, the little designs that were added at the base, the borders that were used. And I always tell people I would think about using some of these antique sampler alphabets as sources when you're looking to either personalize something you've been stitching, or you want to design something yourself using letters or names in something that you're stitching. So this was also American Marking Samplers, and that came out in Nashville. So let's see. I have one more here to show you, And this one was so much fun to do. It is, I'll hold up the model. This is called Stitching in the Round. And I actually thought when I designed this that this would be the most popular design at market. Well, Eliza took over. Her French birds went to #1. But the interesting thing is this is gaining momentum. And Keepsakes, actually, which is the shop in Ohio that I taught at last January, I'll tell you more about that. They just sent me an order yesterday because they are reopening their online store, and they are featuring some of the best-selling designs that they've had over the last few months. And this one fell into that category. So what this is, of course, another series that I've done. This, again, was so much fun to do. This was suggested by Anne, who is with Dying to Stitch in Virginia. She and her partner Pat love the round designs. They've stitched all of them. And so she suggested this one. It was so much fun to put together because you can see there's tomatoes and pin cushions and sewing birds and scissors and a pair of glasses and books and ABC and 1, 2, 3 and thimbles and little hoops and the cross stitch, and I actually added tiny little buttons in there. Now I stitched this one in 2 colors, and it's hard probably to see the second color. Let's see, let me set this down and tell you. First of all, I stitched this on where's my fabric? On antique white Belfast over 2, this particular model. I've also stitched it over 1. Actually, that's out at a trunk show. Let me backtrack. This is mounted in a wooden box that comes from Hobby Lobby. They're great. You can put lining in the bottom of them. They are raw wood when they come, so I just spray paint them. And then I usually take one motif from the design to put on the inside of the box. I don't know where this tape came from. I think probably at a trunk show they were trying to attach the lid to the bottom of the box so it wouldn't get lost. But so what was I going to tell you about this? Anyhow, this is done very, very well. And it was a fun one to design. It was fun to put together. I know what I was going to tell you. What colors did I use? Okay, in the original, I used Cherry Tomato, which is from Classic Color Works. And I also used Pale Pink DMC. So there are 2 colors in this design. So I think, nope, I have one more to show you. All right, let's get that out of the way. So this is one that I have been wanting to show you for a long time. This is a limited edition kit that I released in Nashville. And I haven't had the model because from that show, this model went to another shop and then it went to another shop. So finally I have it back in hand to show you how beautiful it is. This is sold as a kit. It is based on a marking sampler from a little girl named Lina Stoked, and it was stitched in 1872. The thing that I love about this piece is it is so beautifully finished. So Susan from Keepsakes, who I met when I was teaching last January, offered to finish it for me. And look at the colors and the fabrics that she chose. So this was a Marcus fabric that I was able to order online. All of the trims, the velveteen, and the rickrack along the edges, they are all from Lady Dot Creates. The silk ribbon, the velveteen, the rickrack, just beautiful. Again, there is a pin from Jersey Girl Stitch Company in here, and then Susan made this darling little strawberry to add to the front of the pillow. Now the kit I've shown you before, but I've never been able to show you the model, actually contains everything you need to finish this little pillow. So the backing, the velvet, the silk ribbon, the floss to stitch the design, the linen to stitch the design, and complete finishing instructions. So there's instructions in there on how to put the pillow together, on how to make the little strawberry. There's a template in there. So I just love the way it turned out. I'm so happy to have it. It's not going to be here for long. It's going to leave for another trunk show soon. But I just love the way it turned out. And wouldn't that look cute in a little dough bowl with your other red and white samplers? I just think it would be adorable. So that, I think, completes all of the designs that I released in Nashville. So now I have exciting news for you. What am I going to be releasing at this next market? I have 7 pieces I'm releasing. Now, the first one I'm going to show you, you've seen before, but it is, let me grab it here, Bluebird of Happiness, which is the design that I taught when I was at the Keepsakes Stitchaway retreat last January. And this was an exclusive to Keepsakes, and actually they still carry it in their online store. But now I'm going to be able to release this to any shop in the US or abroad. And I'm very excited to do that because there are so many shops who have expressed interest in getting this piece, and I'm excited. I think it will do well. It did very, very well at Keepsakes. And so this is another piece. I'm going to show you the booklet. I'm going to talk to you about the fabric and the fibers, and then there are also 4 smalls that go with this design. So the framing, once again, is done by L&M Framing. Let me show you the back so you can see. It is Lisa at lnmframing.com. All right, so let me set that down and show you the booklet and the little smalls. So the booklet that I sold through Keepsakes looked like this, and it is I reformatted it actually to sell it to shops because some of the parts of this were written exclusively for Keepsakes because I was teaching it as a class. But this is the antique that I used that inspired the Bluebird design. So the new booklet is going to look a lot like this, but it's not going to have this plastic piece down the edge. It's going to be a 8-fold full-size booklet. I found out after I started assembling these that these were very challenging to assemble. I'm getting a lot of glare from my lamp here because it meant putting a plastic cover on and then this little sleeve on each booklet. And they didn't, when you're putting hundreds together, they did not go together quickly. So this is generally what the booklet will look like. So it is coming out to shops all over. And then there are 4 smalls in the booklet. So just a little side note, I'm looking at my time and none of you seem to mind if the videos go too long. I just hope you have stitching and something nice to drink and a comfortable chair. So I have 4 little smalls in this booklet. One was a little pin cushion, and I give complete finishing instructions for each of the smalls. All of these designs were taken out of the Bluebird design. I did a little pin keep, which looks like this, and I used a pretty blue, I think this is a French General fabric or a toile. I can't remember where I got that, again in my stash. And then I did a tiny little scissor fob over 1 on 28, and then this is a little needle book. So all of these smalls are in the booklet. Now what did I stitch this on? Let's check it out here. Let me look. I should remember this. I stitched it on 32 count R&R linen called French Vanilla. But when I was at StitchCon, there were a number of people who had purchased this booklet and were trying to find linen. And you know what? There are so many gorgeous linens out there. And each of you has, or Ada, has a different fabric that you love to work on. And so, don't be afraid. You don't have to look for, if you can't find what I stitched it on, find something that you like. I saw people that chose linens that had a green cast, a pink cast. It was fun. It was fun. And if you need to change the colors, change the colors. I know people who did that. They just needed to. My colors are very pale. They wanted them a little darker and brighter. So what colors did I use? I used a combination of Classic Colorworks, Weeks Dye Works, but I always give DMC equivalents in the booklet. So that is going to be coming out to the general public, and I'm very excited. Now, I mentioned before that, so what's going to happen with this show, and I'm sure you've been seeing this online, is that all of us are going to be releasing sneak peeks on Facebook, through the shop that is running this online show. We will be releasing sneak peeks on Instagram. I will be releasing peeks on my friends of JBW Designs Facebook page. And what we're encouraging all of us designers and vendors who are going to be at that market is to contact a shop in your area or in your region and let them know, this is what I am interested in, I want to order, because the shops so appreciate that. What they're doing is they're taking what they're calling pre-orders. So you're calling your shop and just saying, I would like, and I'm going to show you the rest of my designs, these titles that Judy has released, and that is so helpful to them because it gives them an idea of how that product is going to sell. So if you can place a pre-order with them, they're just so grateful because now they know, okay, this one is going to sell well, this one just fair. It helps them to decide what quantities to order. So I'm very appreciative when you do contact your shops for that. So what else do I have coming up? So I have, as I mentioned, 7 things all together. I'm trying to see if they're all here. They're piled. I didn't forget anything. So this design, I just love how it turned out. So you'll recognize it. This is the little sampler that inspired the Bluebird design. And I called it Hannah's Bluebird Sampler. I was not able to find out anything about the girl that stitched this piece. I loved the colors when I saw it. I bought it, I think, on eBay or Etsy. Especially, of course, love this band. And I would love to see this stitched on maybe a larger count fabric and finished as a drum. I just think it would be adorable. The interesting about this sampler, which I've shown in the past in its original state, is that there is the most unusual group of letters across the top. And several people wrote to me, and it was very helpful actually, and said they felt that that might be, it doesn't spell out a name, it just, it's very confusing. So the gal that wrote to me said she thought that it could be the first letters of a Bible verse or a hymn. So if any of you have a theory about that, I'd love to hear it. But I've seen this actually on another sampler, and I'm trying to think in one of my sampler books that has that, not the same sequence, but a similar sequence of letters that don't seem to spell out anything. So I do not have copies of my new books with me because actually I'm going this afternoon to finalize the final proofs at the printer. But let's see. So basically, this is what this is going to look like. It's a 3-fold sampler so that the chart can be big enough. I stitched this particular piece. I'm going to hold it up again because the booklet doesn't look that exciting. It's in its raw form. I stitched this on a 36 count Edinburgh cream linen. over 2. It could be done, of course, on any linen or Aida that interests you. And this is another L&M frame. So that's the second design that will be released in a couple weeks. Then I did, this was kind of a fun one. So once in a while people write to me and they give me ideas of what they think they'd like me to design. I'm going to warn you, I very rarely, I don't want to discourage you, but I don't do custom work. And if someone gives me an idea, I love getting ideas, but I have to be inspired by that idea. So this just happened to inspire me. So years ago, let's see, not years ago, a year ago, I did a design that I called Around France. And it looked like this, and I used all these darling little French motifs in it. And I finished it over 2, and then I finished it over 1, because I thought, oh, for anybody that wanted to go to France or had gone before, that this would make a darling ornament for them. And so it was mounted on a wreath from Hobby Lobby. I've been back this fall well, it's not fall yet, it's still summer, but they have their Christmas stuff out. I've been back a couple times trying to find this again to see if it's still being produced by them. I have not found it yet, but you could find other round items to mount this on. The over 1 was stitched on antique white cashel. Anyhow, someone called or wrote to me and said, would you consider doing one about England? Well, that just kind of struck my fancy. You know, I love doing my rounds. So what do I have as a new design? But around Britain. And this was so much fun. Look at the little charm down there at the bottom, the little crown. This was so much fun to do because, as you know, when I do these, I make a list of all the different motifs that I think would fall into the category of Britain. And boy, did I come up with a thorough list. This was not hard. In fact, somebody wrote to me once, let's see if I can find my list here. Yes, here it is. And said to me, why don't you list the motifs that you put in your sampler? Because sometimes people have trouble identifying what in the heck they are. So this one has a crown, a little a red telephone booth, the little red double-decker bus, Big Ben, London Bridge, ships. It actually has the cipher for the new king, King Charles, throne, the British flag, an umbrella, how appropriate, right? A teapot, a teacup, set of arms, coat of arms. So it was just so much fun to do. And of course, if I stitch it over 2, let me look at my notes here. I stitched this on a 36 count antique white linen over 2 with just 1 thread. And I'll tell you about the finishing of that in a minute. And then of course, I had to do it as an ornament, and I did it over 1 with red. And this actually was an ornament that I did buy at Hobby Lobby just recently. The paint on the back isn't great, but I spray painted it and then just mounted the over 1 on the front of this. So let me tell you, and I mentioned this before, I carry these round scallop discs, wooden discs from France. And I think I told you about my dilemma with them. It was just a real snafu. I ordered them, I sold out of them in the Nashville market, and I reordered immediately. And the gal that makes them for me from the bee company in France, Delphine, sent them again immediately. Well, they got caught in customs. And customs must have looked at this box of wooden discs and decided that somehow they were dangerous, and they sent them back to France. So it took several months to get them again, but I do have them back. I'm going to put them in my next show, and I encouraged the shop owners when I wrote my description to place an order right away, because I know if I reorder, it's going to take quite a while. So that's the third design that's coming out. Now, the next 4 are very small, and maybe you'll be glad to hear that because sometimes we don't have time to do a bigger design. So what did I do? You know, I had that series called Sing a Song of Christmas, and I think there are 15 designs. They're all little stockings, and I thought, you know what, I need to move on to something else. So I did stockings again, but this time they all have a different theme, and my goodness, were these fun to design. So let me tell you about the last 4 designs. One is called, appropriately enough, a stitcher stocking. Do you recognize a lot of those motifs? But what a fun gift this would be to give to someone you know who is a stitcher. And I'm going to put the booklet down and show you. Look at the little charm that my finisher added. It's a tiny little silver hand. Isn't that just sweet? And she just finished it with as a flat. Now I'll give you a quick lesson on finishing these stockings. As I've mentioned before, you'll need to make, if you're going to finish them yourselves, and you can, you need to make a template of this. And whether it's the little one over one or the larger stocking worked over 2, I'll show you the back of that. Look at that fabric. Isn't that gorgeous? All you need to do is you put this down on top of your printer, make a copy of it, and then that gives you the shape to cut out your board to mount this. And you're going to cut out one board for your backing, one for the front, and then trim, of course, is added around the edge. So here's a pom-pom trim on this one, and then just a little twisted cording on this one. So stitcher stocking, I predict is going to be quite popular. And if my very quick finishing instructions don't make it for you, let me know, and I've done it before in some of my past videos, but I'm happy to give you more finishing lessons. So the next stocking in this new series is called a Bristol stocking. And some of you may not know what a Bristol sampler is. I'm going to show you the 1 over 1 and the 1 over 2. I forgot to mention the fabrics I used. Let me go back to this one. I used a 37 Legacy linen called Corn Tassel for the over 2, and then 28 Cashel for the over 1. And I believe that this one was stitched on Corn Tassel too. So a Bristol sampler, what is that? For some of you absolutely know what I'm talking about. Sometimes when I talk to people about this, they go, what do you mean? So in the late 1800s in Bristol, England, there was a man named George Muller, and he lived in London. He was the head of a church there, and he saw the number of orphans on the streets. And he ended up actually moving to Bristol, England, and opening eventually 4 different orphanages. And at these orphanages, they taught the young girls to stitch, which is so cool. And many of their samplers that you see today are worked in red. So that's what makes them so kind of special. They're worked in red, which is one of our favorite sampler colors. They're usually a series of alphabets and then sometimes little motifs at the bottom. So that's what I was trying to reproduce in my little Bristol stocking samplers here. Again, they're finished as a flat with just red on the back. And I don't think these would take too long to stitch, and they would make wonderful gifts. So if you need to know more about Bristol samplers, I'll try to remember to put this in my notes. Claudia Dutcher with Dutch Treat Designs is an expert on Bristol samplers. She has a Bristol Sampler website and her own, and she sells Bristol Sampler reproductions, and she is, as I say, knows everything. She's been teaching at the attic the last few years on this topic, and I would have loved to hear one of her lectures. So check it out if that's something that you're interested in pursuing. So the third design that's coming up is called, what did I name it? A sampler stocking. So I was very inspired to continue with the stitching theme and do a little stocking that looks like a sampler. And I just loved it. It was so much fun, first of all, to put together, to choose the colors. Look at the fabric on the back. I just love how it turned out. What was this stitched on? This was on corn tassel also. So that was the third design in the new stocking series. And then, I'm hoping it's not too long, I always worry about you. And then the fourth in the series is called the Danish Stocking. And it reminds me of things that you would see in Norwegian designs. It has a little church and the deer and the borders and the darling fabric on the back. And this does not look like corn tassel. Let's look at the fabric on this. This was stitched on 36 count atomic ranch parchment, which is a beautiful color. And this, the 1/1, was stitched on a red 28 count linen from Witchelt. Look at the fabric on the back. I'll tell you, I love my finishers. They just choose such amazing things. So those are the designs that I'm going to be releasing at the next market. And I so appreciate your support and your encouragement, and I look forward to hearing what you have to say. So I'm going to wrap this up. I usually give you a quotation. Don't you love it when my arm falls off the chair? It's a little awkward. Anyhow, every time I do a video, I usually do a quotation, but I'm changing things up this time. This time I have a book. And how I found out about this book, I was listening to the radio one day, which I often have on when I'm up here working, and I heard an author interviewed, and the name of his book is called Love Stories. It's the most, I am loving it. I ordered it right away. I haven't finished it. I'll tell you a little bit about the premise of it. The author's name is Trent Dalton. He is from Australia. And at the end of COVID, I'll give you just a quick background. He received from a dear friend, his mother who passed away, her old blue Olivetti typewriter. She knew he was a writer, and she encouraged him to keep writing. So he took that typewriter to, he lived in Brisbane, or lives in Brisbane, Australia, to a street corner in downtown Brisbane, and set up a little table and chairs and a sign that says, "Do you have a love story to tell me about?" And the book is full of inspiring stories and sad stories, because the people that stop to talk to him are from a very wide variety of backgrounds. Some of them are sad. I find myself crying. Some are happy. Some are a little weird. But anyhow, that's my suggestion. Instead of a quotation this week, check it out. Read the review. See if that's something you think you might like. So now what do I have to tell you? My giveaways this week. So I decided, since I reached 5,000 subscribers, let me grab my pile here, that in my next video, am going to give away 10 prizes. And I'm sorry that some of these are crinkly. So I went into my stock closet and I started looking around for things that might be fun to give away. I'm not going to number these. Move that out of the way. I'm just going to show them to you. And if you write a comment, if you're a subscriber, if you're over 18, I choose randomly from the people who make comments. And so 10 of you will win a prize. And it's a thank you for subscribing and watching. So the first one I have is a candy cane pocket kit. It makes a darling little ornament. The second one I have is an older design. It's called a spring needle book, and it contains everything you need to finish it. Most of these are not available any longer, so they're really low or zero inventory. I have a Wishes for Santa kit. And this is actually like a little envelope for a child to put in a note to Santa. I only had one of those left. This is called Mary. This is from a design that is stitched on red and white. And it is made up into a darling little pillow. This is a linen bag. I used to carry these quite a while ago and have not been able to get them any longer. But there's a booklet that goes with this called French Accoutrements, and it has borders and alphabets in here, and you can actually stitch on this linen cuff. So as I say, these are all low inventory. I'm going to give away one of my American Marking Sampler books. I'm going to give away Christmas Ornaments 3, Christmas Ornaments 1, a Love Always kit, and my Antique Red Sampler 2 booklet. So make a comment if that's something that you're interested in getting. So my last thing to tell you about is how to contact me. My email is judy@jbwdesigns.com. I do have a website, jbwdesigns.com, and if you go to that website, there is a quote shop that's listed. Some of my older titles are for sale there, not my newer ones. I do have an Instagram account. It's judy.whitman. I have a Friends of JBW Design Facebook page, and people post designs that they have finished of mine, and that's so much fun to see what they've done. Beautiful work. And then I'll put my address in the information below. So last bit of news. I am not sure I will have time to make another video before the show in 2 weeks. If I do, I'll try to squeeze one in. You may see another video pop up from me that is really going to be aimed at shop owners, because they're not going to want to listen to my video that's now at 1 hour and 2 minutes. They don't have time for that. But I may make a very short video for them before the market. It is public, so it may come up in your feed, and it will be a very quick description of the 7 things that I'm releasing. So don't be surprised if you see that. 2 fun things going on this week and next. On Sunday, we have a picnic with our family, and our oldest grandson, Wyatt, and his wife are going to reveal whether they're having a boy or a girl on Christmas Eve. So next time I talk to you, I'll give you the news. And then the last thing that I just got a text on this morning is I always take as many of my grandchildren as can join me on a back-to-school shopping trip. Now, my grandchildren are many of them are either in school, out of school, college, etc. So I still take them. I don't care. This is what I love to do. I like to spoil them. So we usually go out for, this time it'll be dinner, and we look for shoes or whatever they need for back to school. So that's going to take place Tuesday. So think about me on Tuesday as I'm shopping with this group of children, probably looking a little harried, but it's always fun, and they love the routine and the tradition of our back to school trips. So I hope you have a good weekend, and thank you so much for sticking with me. I'm so appreciative of you all. See you soon. Bye-bye.